Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode here on English in Fluency. I am your host, Alex, and I am so happy that you have decided to join me today for this deep dive into conversational English. We have a really special lesson planned for you today that is going to change the way you listen to and speak English in your daily life. If you have ever felt lost in a conversation, especially when people are debating ideas or making plans, then today is the day we fix that. We are going to focus on a specific skill that is often overlooked in traditional textbooks, but is absolutely vital for real communication. We are talking about understanding agreement signals and how to express soft disagreement. Now, you might be thinking, Alex, I know how to say yes and no, but trust me, it is much more than that. In natural English, we rarely just say a blunt yes or a harsh no. We use signals, phrases, and tone to show how we feel. And today, I am going to help you master that B1 level listening skill so you can follow conversations smoothly and confidently. So, let's think about why this is so important. Imagine you are in a meeting at work, or maybe you are just hanging out with friends, and someone suggests an idea. If you want to be part of the group, you need to know how to agree with them in a way that sounds friendly and enthusiastic. On the other hand, if you disagree, you want to do it softly so you don't sound rude or angry. You want to keep the conversation positive and flowing. That is the secret to fluent communication. It is not just about grammar, it is about social connection. When you understand these hidden signals, you will understand the real meaning behind what people are saying, not just the literal words. You will hear the emotion, the hesitation, and the enthusiasm. This is going to make listening so much easier for you because you will start to anticipate what people are going to say next. To help us practice this, we are going to listen in on some conversations between two friends, Liam and Elena. They are going to talk about their weekend plans, and we are going to analyze exactly how they agree and disagree with each other. But before we jump into their dialogue, I want to prepare your ears. We are going to look at some common phrases. When someone agrees with you strongly in English, they often use words like absolutely, exactly, or totally. These are strong agreement signals. If they agree but want to add something, they might start with yes, but, or that's true, however. These are signals that they are agreeing partially, but are about to introduce a different idea. And for disagreement, instead of saying, I disagree, which can sound very formal and cold, native speakers often use phrases like, I see what you mean, but, or I am not so sure about that. These soften the blow. They tell the listener, I respect your opinion, but I have a different perspective. All right, let's get started with our first scenario. Imagine Liam and Elena are sitting in a coffee shop on a Friday afternoon. They are both tired from a long week, and they are trying to decide how to spend their Saturday. Listen carefully to how they interact. As you listen, try to spot the moments where they show they are on the same page, and listen for the moments where one of them hesitates or introduces a different idea. Here is Liam and Elena. Liam says, I am honestly so tired from this week, Elena. I really just want to do something completely relaxing tomorrow. I was thinking maybe we could go to that new park by the river and just read books or sit on the grass. Elena replies, Oh, that sounds lovely, Liam. I am definitely with you on needing some relaxation. I've been running around all week, so just sitting by the river sounds perfect. She continues, Actually, The weather is supposed to be really sunny tomorrow, so the park would be a great choice. Liam smiles and says, exactly. And I heard there is a really nice coffee cart there now, so we wouldn't even have to pack lunch. We could just grab a sandwich there. Now, let's pause there for a moment and analyze what just happened. Did you hear the agreement signals? Liam started by expressing his feeling. Elena said, "Oh, that sounds lovely. And I am definitely with you on needing some relaxation." That phrase, "I am definitely with you," is a fantastic way to show strong agreement. It connects her feelings to his. Then she said, "Actually, the weather is supposed to be really sunny." In this context, "actually" is not a contradiction. It is a supporting point. She is adding evidence to support his idea. Then Liam responded with "exactly." This is a very common short word we use to show we are listening and we agree 100%. So far, they are totally in sync. But let's see what happens when the conversation continues, and they try to make a specific plan. Liam continues, "So, we should plan to leave around 11 in the morning. That way we can get a good spot before it gets too crowded in the afternoon." Elena pauses for a second and says, "Well, 11 is okay, but I was thinking maybe we could go a bit earlier. I have to walk my dog in the morning, so if we go earlier, say around 9, I can do that beforehand, and then I won't be rushing." Liam thinks about it and says, "Yeah, that makes sense. 9 o'clock works for me too. It might actually be nicer to go when it is a bit cooler outside." Elena says, "Great. Then it is a plan. 9 o'clock at the park. Did you catch that soft disagreement?" Elena did not want to go at 11. She could have said, "No, 11 is too late." That would have sounded a bit harsh. Instead, she said, "Well, 11 is okay, but..." This is a classic soft disagreement structure. First, you validate the other person's idea to show you heard it, and it is not terrible. You say, 11 is okay. That is the polite part. Then you add the but to introduce your preference. She also added, "I was thinking maybe we could go a bit earlier." By saying "I was thinking," she makes it about her own thought process rather than telling him he is wrong. It is a gentle shift. And notice how Liam accepted it immediately. He said, "Yeah, that makes sense." He used a short agreement signal to show he was flexible. This is the flow of natural English. It is a dance of give and take. Let's move on to another scenario to give you more practice with this. In this next part, Liam and Elena are talking about a movie they watched last night. They have slightly different opinions on the ending of the movie. Listen to how they navigate this difference without arguing. Liam starts by saying, "So, I finally saw that new science fiction movie everyone is talking about. I thought the ending was incredibly sad, though. I really hoped the main character would survive." Elena replies, "I see what you mean about it being sad, but I actually thought it was a beautiful ending. It fit the story perfectly." Stop right there. That was a perfect example of a soft disagreement combined with a counter-opinion. Elena said, "I see what you mean." That is the signal. It tells Liam, "I hear you. I understand why you are sad." It validates his feeling. Then she says, "But I actually thought it was a beautiful ending." By using "actually" here, she is gently pivoting to her own view. She is not saying he is wrong for being sad. She is just saying she saw it differently. Let's hear how Liam responds. He says, "Really? I guess I can see that. It was certainly unexpected. I just wanted a happy ending, I suppose." Elena laughs and says, "I know, me too usually, but this one felt more real because of it." Liam says, Fair point. It definitely made me think. Liam's response here is really important for B1 learners. He said, I guess I can see that. This is a way of agreeing partially. He is not saying, okay, you are right, I was wrong. He is saying, I can understand your perspective, even if I still prefer a happy ending. He is keeping the conversation friendly. Then Elena says, fair point. This is a great phrase to use when someone explains their reasoning to you. It means what you say makes sense. It is a respectful way to acknowledge their view. Finally, Liam summarizes the feeling with, it definitely made me think. They end the discussion on a positive note, even though they disagreed on the ending. This is the goal of fluent communication, connecting with people, not just winning an argument. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about the tone of voice. When you are listening to English, the tone often tells you more than the words. For example, if someone says, that is interesting, with a flat voice, they might actually mean they think it is a bad idea. But if they say it with a high, energetic voice, they really mean it is interesting. In the examples we just heard, imagine if Elena had said, I see what you mean, in a bored voice. Liam would have felt shut down, but because she likely said it warmly and openly, he felt comfortable sharing his feelings. As you practice your listening, try not just to translate the words in your head, but to listen to the music of the language. Is the voice going up or down? Is it fast or slow? These are the clues that tell you if someone is agreeing enthusiastically or if they are hesitating because they want to disagree. Let's try another conversation. This time, our characters are James and Sophie. They are colleagues discussing a project at work. Workplace English is a great place to practice soft disagreement because you have to be very professional. You cannot tell your boss or your coworker that their idea is terrible. You have to be diplomatic. James and Sophie are trying to choose a color scheme for a new brochure. Listen for how they negotiate. James says, I really think we should go with a bright red for the main title. It grabs attention and shows energy. Sophie replies, I agree that we need something energetic, but I am worried that bright red might be a little too aggressive for this client. They are quite traditional, so maybe a dark blue would be safer. Let's break this down. Sophie starts with a strong agreement signal. I agree that we need something energetic. She makes James feel heard. She confirms that his goal is correct. Then she uses the word but to pivot. But then she explains her reasoning using the phrase, I am worried that. This is a very polite way to disagree. She is not saying red is bad. She is saying she is worried about the client's reaction. That makes it about the client, not about James's taste. Then she suggests an alternative. James responds, that is a good point about the client being traditional. I didn't think of that. Maybe blue is better. Or what about a dark green? It is still energetic but looks more natural. Sophie says, oh, I like dark green. That could work really well. James used a great phrase here. That is a good point. He is admitting that Sophie's idea has merit. This is a sign of an advanced speaker. He is flexible. Then he offers a compromise. He keeps the energy idea but changes the color to green. Sophie agrees with, oh, I like dark green. This is a simple, direct agreement. It is short and sweet. Notice how they work together to find a solution. They didn't fight. They used soft disagreement to explore options until they found something they both liked. This is called negotiation. and it happens every day in English. I want you to try to visualize these conversations as they happen. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine Sophie and James sitting in an office with papers spread out on a desk. Sophie is speaking calmly and professionally. James is nodding, thinking. This context helps you understand the vocabulary. If you just read the words, you might miss the professional tone. But when you hear it, or read it as a script, you can feel the respect they have for each other. Let's bring our friends Liam and Elena back for one more scenario. This one is a bit trickier. They are planning a vacation together, and they have a big disagreement about where to go. One wants to go to the city, the other wants to go to the mountains. This requires a lot of soft skills to resolve. Liam says, "I was looking at flights, and I think we should definitely go to London for the week. There are so many museums, restaurants, and shows. It would be an amazing cultural experience." Elena sighs and says, "I know London is great, and I know you love the museums, but I was really hoping for a quiet trip. We live in a busy city all year. I kind of just want to rent a cabin in the woods and disconnect for a few days." Here we have a classic clash of desires. Liam wants excitement. Elena wants peace. Elena uses a very respectful structure here. She starts with, "I know London is great, and I know you love the museums." She is validating his wishes completely. She acknowledges his personality. Then she uses the word "but." Then she explains her own need using the phrase, "I was really hoping for." She uses "I" to talk about her feelings, which is less accusatory than saying, "You always want to go to cities." She says, "I kind of just want to." The phrase kind of softens her statement even more. It makes it sound less demanding. Liam replies, "I get that. I do need a break from the noise too. But I am afraid if we go to a cabin, I might get bored after a day. I like having things to do." Elena says, "Well, what if we found a cabin that is near a small town? That way we could hike during the day, but we could also go into town for dinner or look around the shops." Liam thinks and says, "That could be a good compromise. A small town would be quieter than London, but not totally silent. I think I could handle that." Elena says, "Me too. Let's look for cabins near a town then." Wow, did you see how they solved that? They used a compromise. Liam said, "I get that. This is a very common, casual way to say I understand your point. It is short and empathetic." Then he admitted his fear of being bored. He was honest. Elena then proposed a solution that included both of their needs. A cabin near a town gives her nature, and him activity. Liam said, "That could be a good compromise." Compromise is a great word to know. It means each person gives up a little bit so that everyone is happy. When you hear the word compromise in a conversation, you know people are working together to solve a problem. By now, you are probably starting to see the pattern. Natural English conversation is like a tennis match. You hit the ball over the net, the other person hits it back. If you hit the ball too hard, like a harsh disagreement, you might hurt the other person or scare them away. If you don't hit it at all, the conversation stops. You want to keep the rally going. You want to keep the ball in play. Agreement signals keep the rhythm going. Soft disagreements allow you to change direction without stopping the game. I want to give you a few more phrases that you can listen for in movies, TV shows, or real life. When someone strongly agrees, they might say, "You can say that again," or "Tell me about it." These are idioms. They don't mean literally repeat yourself. They mean, I feel the exact same way. For example, If it is raining and cold, and someone says, "This weather is terrible," you can say, "Tell me about it." It means, "Yes, I know. I agree completely." Another one is, "I am with you there," or "That is exactly how I feel." These phrases create a bond between speakers. For soft disagreement, you might hear, "I suppose so, but..." This sounds a little hesitant. It means I agree, but not 100%. Or you might hear, "I take your point, however." This is slightly more formal, good for work or serious discussions. It means, "I understand what you are saying, but I still think differently." A very common casual phrase is, "Yeah, but..." We use this all the time. Be careful with your tone here. "Yeah, but" can sound rude if you say it too aggressively. But if you say it gently, like, "Yeah, but I am not sure," it is perfectly polite. Let's do a quick listening check. I am going to say a sentence, and I want you to think about what it means. Ready? I hear what you are saying, but I have to disagree. This is actually quite strong. It starts soft, "I hear what you are saying," but the end is firm, "I have to disagree." This is a polite way to have a serious disagreement. Here is another one. "I am not sure that is the best way to go." This is very soft. It does not even use the word disagree. It just expresses doubt. It is a gentle way to say no. Now, let's put all of this together into a final, longer practice session. We are going to listen to a conversation between four friends. They are planning a birthday party for their friend, Mark. The characters are Sarah, Ben, Chloe, and David. They have a lot of ideas, and they need to agree on a plan. This is going to be a bit faster, so listen closely for the signals we have practiced. Try to identify who agrees, who disagrees, and how they solve their problems. Here is the conversation. Sarah starts, "Okay, everyone. Mark's birthday is next week. We need to figure out what we are doing. I was thinking we could just go to that Italian restaurant we like. It is easy, and we know he loves pasta." Ben jumps in and says, "Yeah, that is a good idea. But do you think it is special enough for a birthday?" "I mean, we go there all the time." Sarah replies, "That is true. Maybe we want something more festive." Chloe says, "Well, how about we hire a boat for the afternoon? We could have a picnic on the river. That would be really memorable." David says, "Oh, I love that idea. Being on the water would be amazing." Ben, however, looks a bit worried. He says, "I see the appeal, Chloe, but isn't that going to be really expensive?" "I am on a tight budget this month." Chloe says, "I thought about that. If we all chip in, it might not be too bad. But I understand if it is too much." David says, "I am happy to pay a bit more if Ben is short on cash. But if Ben really cannot afford it, maybe we should think of something else." Sarah says, "Thanks, David. That is nice of you. But I don't want Ben to feel bad. Let's find something cheaper." Ben says, "I appreciate that, guys. What if we have a barbecue at the park? We can buy the food and cook it ourselves. It is cheap and fun." Chloe says, "A barbecue is nice, but I am worried about the weather. It rains so much these days." David says, "I am with Chloe on that one. I do not want to stand in the rain eating a burger." Sarah laughs and says, "Fair point. What about a potluck dinner at my place? Everyone brings a dish, we play music, and we hang out. It is free, warm, and we can stay as late as we want." Ben says, "That sounds perfect. I can bring my famous guacamole." Chloe says, "I am in. I will make a cake." David says, "I will bring the drinks." Sarah says, "Awesome. Then it is settled. Potluck at my place next Saturday." That was a lot to take in, wasn't it? But did you see how natural that flowed? Let's recap the strategies they used. First, Sarah proposed the restaurant. Ben agreed but pointed out a flaw. He used, "Yeah, that is a good idea, but," and asked a question to make Sarah think. She accepted it with, "That is true." Then Chloe proposed the boat. David agreed strongly with, "Oh, I love that idea." But Ben used a soft disagreement, "I see the appeal." "But isn't it going to be expensive?" He used a question to disagree gently. He didn't say, "It is too expensive." He asked, "Isn't it?" This is a very clever way to disagree. It invites the other person to solve the problem. Chloe tried to solve the money issue, but Ben was still worried. David offered to help, showing he is a good friend, but Sarah prioritized the group harmony. She suggested a cheaper option. Ben then proposed the barbecue. Chloe disagreed, using, "I am worried about the weather." She shared her feelings rather than just saying no. David supported her with, "I am with Chloe on that one." This is a great phrase to use when you want to back someone else up in a conversation. It shows you are a team. Finally, Sarah came up with the potluck idea. This solved everyone's problems. It was cheap, indoors, and social. Everyone agreed with simple phrases like, "That sounds perfect," "I am in," and "awesome." This is the power of understanding these signals. When you can hear the soft disagreements, you understand the problems the group is facing. When you hear the agreement signals, you know when the problem is solved. You stop listening to individual words and start listening to the dynamics of the group. This is a huge step forward in your fluency. I want to encourage you to practice these phrases in your own life. The next time you are talking to an English speaker, try using, "I see what you mean," but instead of just, "No." Try saying, "I am not sure if that is a good idea," instead of "that is bad." You will see that people respond to you much more positively. They will see you as a polite and thoughtful speaker. And when you are listening, pay attention to the music. Listen for the buts, the howevers, and the yeses. They are the signposts that guide you through the conversation. Remember, learning English is not a race. It is about building connections. It is about understanding people and being understood. When you focus on these social skills, like agreement and soft disagreement, you become a better communicator, not just a better speaker of grammar. You learn how to be human in another language. And that, after all, is why we are all here. We want to connect with the world. We have covered a lot of ground so far. We listened to Liam and Elena at the park and the movies. We listened to James and Sophie at work. We listened to the four friends planning a party. In every case, the language was simple, but the social meaning was deep. You now have the tools to navigate these situations yourself. Welcome back to the next part of our deep dive into mastering conversational English here on English in Fluency. I am Alex, and I am so glad you are still with me. We are just getting warmed up, and I have a lot more to share with you to help you sound more natural and understand the subtle dance of English dialogue. In this section, we are going to take it a step further. We are going to look at how to give credit to someone's idea before you disagree with it, and how to use hesitation as a tool for politeness. This is the stuff that really separates a speaker who is just surviving from a speaker who is truly connecting with others. So, let's jump right back in with some new characters and some new situations that you might find yourself in. We are going to meet two friends, Marcus and Jenny. They are currently standing in the middle of a busy shopping mall, looking for a place to have lunch. They are both hungry, and, as we all know, hungry people can be a little bit impatient, so this is a great test of polite language. Listen to how Marcus suggests an idea, and how Jenny responds without hurting his feelings. Marcus says, "Look, there is a fast food burger place right over there. We can get in, eat quickly, and then continue shopping. It is efficient." Jenny pauses, looks at the restaurant, and then turns to Marcus. She says, "I see the logic in that, Marcus, especially since we are in a rush. However, I had my heart set on something a bit healthier today. Maybe we can find a salad bar nearby. Let's freeze the action right there." That was a beautifully polite disagreement. Jenny did not just say, "No, I hate burgers. That would be too strong." Instead, she started with a strong validation. She said, "I see the logic in that." She is telling him, "Your idea makes sense." She is respecting his intelligence. Then she adds, "Especially since we are in a rush." She gives him even more credit. She is basically saying, "You are right about the time." Only after all that does she introduce the disagreement with the word however. However is a slightly formal word, but in this context, it works perfectly to signal a shift in opinion without being aggressive. She then explains her personal preference by saying, "I had my heart set on something healthier." This phrase, "had my heart set on," is a wonderful idiom. It means you really wanted something specific. It makes her disagreement sound like a personal wish, rather than a criticism of his food choice. Marcus responds to this very well. He says, "That is fair. You are right. We did say we wanted to eat better this week. Okay, let's look for a salad place." Jenny smiles and says, "Thanks for being understanding, Marcus. I appreciate it." And just like that, the problem is solved. Marcus used the phrase "that is fair." This is a golden phrase in English arguments or discussions. When someone gives you a good reason for their opinion, you simply say, "That is fair." It shuts down the conflict immediately because you are admitting that their point is valid. It shows you are reasonable. Now, let's move to a different setting. We are going to listen in on a conversation between a couple, Tom and Priya. They are at home on a Sunday evening, trying to decide what movie to watch. This is a classic situation where disagreements happen because everyone has different tastes. Tom is holding the remote control and scrolling through the options. He says, "How about this action movie? It has great reviews, and the special effects look amazing." Priya is sitting on the sofa with a cup of tea. She looks at the screen and says, "I will admit, the special effects do look incredible. But I am not really in the mood for loud explosions and car chases tonight. I am feeling a bit tired, so I would prefer something more relaxing, like a comedy or a drama." Did you hear how Priya started? I will admit, this is a strong agreement signal. It is like saying, "Okay, you win on that point." She is giving him the victory on the special effects. She is being honest. Then she explains her feelings. "I am not really in the mood for—" This is a very common and soft way to disagree. You are not saying the movie is bad. You are just saying it does not match your current mood. It makes the disagreement about you, not about the movie. Tom replies, "Yeah, I get that. It has been a long week. A comedy sounds good, actually. We can watch the action movie tomorrow night." Priya says, "Perfect. That sounds like a plan." Tom's response, "Yeah, I get that," is so simple, but so effective. It shows empathy. He understands her tiredness. He immediately pivots to her suggestion. This is the flow of a healthy relationship and a fluent conversation. Flexibility is key. If you are too rigid, if you stick to your guns too much, the conversation stops. But if you listen to the soft disagreement signals and adapt, the conversation keeps going and everyone stays happy. Let's introduce another pair of colleagues now, Leo and Sam. They are working on a marketing project together, and they are discussing a slogan for a new product. This is a professional environment, so the language needs to be respectful, but also clear. They need to make a decision together. Leo suggests, I think we should go with the slogan, "The future is now." It is short, punchy, and it sounds very modern. Sam looks at the paper on the desk and thinks for a moment. He says, "That is a strong slogan, Leo. No doubt about that. However, I am slightly concerned that it is a bit overused. Many other companies have used similar phrases. I wonder if we could try something that sounds more unique to our brand." Sam uses a great combination here. He says, "That is a strong slogan, no doubt about that. That is a very high compliment." He validates Leo's work, but then he uses the signal, however. He introduces his concern with, "I am slightly concerned." This is professional and non-threatening. He is not saying it is a bad slogan. He is just sharing a worry. Then he suggests an alternative. Leo nods his head and says, "I take your point, Sam. It is a bit generic, isn't it? What if we change it to, 'Your future starts today'?" Sam smiles and says, "Oh, I like that. It keeps the same feeling, but sounds more personal. The phrase 'I take your point' is excellent for B1 learners. It means I understand your argument, and I accept it as valid." Leo used it to show he was listening. He then asked a tag question, "Isn't it?" This invites Sam to agree again, strengthening their connection. Tag questions are a great way to keep a conversation going and check for agreement. You can hear the rising intonation in your voice when you say, "Isn't it?" or "Don't you?" It turns a statement into a conversation. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the power of silence and small sounds. In many languages, silence can be awkward, but in English, small sounds can say a lot. We call these fillers or hesitation sounds. When you disagree, sometimes you need a second to think. You do not want to jump in with a no immediately. So you use sounds like or well. For example, if someone asks, "Do you want to go to the party tonight?" and you don't want to, you might say, "I don't think I can make it." The tells the person, "I am thinking about your invitation. I respect it." It softens the rejection that follows. Let's listen to a quick example between two friends, Ben and Chloe, who are planning a trip. Ben asks, "Should we book the expensive hotel right on the beach? It has a swimming pool and a gym." Chloe pauses and says, That would be amazing, obviously. But considering our budget, I am not sure it is the best option. We could save a lot of money if we stayed a few blocks away and walked to the beach." The at the beginning tells Ben she is considering his idea seriously. She is not dismissing it. Then she says, "That would be amazing, obviously." She agrees with the quality of the idea. Then she uses the word "but" to pivot to reality. Considering our budget is a very polite way to say we do not have enough money. It focuses on the objective situation, not on Ben being unreasonable. Ben replies, "Yeah, that is a good point. We do need to save money for food and activities." Okay, let's look at hotels a few blocks away. The phrase, "Yeah, that is a good point," is another variation of agreement. It is very similar to fair point, or I see what you mean. It is the grease that keeps the gears of conversation turning smoothly. Without these phrases, conversations feel dry and mechanical. With them, they feel human and warm. We should also look at how to agree when you are not 100% sure. Sometimes you just want to be polite and go along with someone, or you just do not have a strong opinion. In these cases, English speakers use vague agreement phrases. Things like, I suppose so, or I guess that works, or yeah, why not? These are not enthusiastic agreements, but they are agreements nonetheless. They show you are cooperative. Imagine a husband and wife, David and Emma, talking about what to cook for dinner. David says, "Do you mind if we have pasta tonight? It is easy to make." Emma replies, "I suppose so. I am not very hungry, so pasta is fine." "I suppose so" is a very soft agreement. It means, okay, I agree, but I do not have a strong feeling about it. It is neutral. It is very important to recognize the tone of voice here. If you say, "I suppose so" with a big smile, it means, sure, great idea. But if you say it with a flat voice and a sigh, it means, I do not really want to, but I will do it to make you happy. As a listener, you have to hear the emotion. As a speaker, you have to control your tone so people understand your true meaning. This is why listening practice is so powerful. You need to hear these phrases in context many times before you can use them perfectly yourself. Let's try one more complex scenario involving 3 people. This happens often at work or in family groups. We have a manager, Sarah, and 2 employees, Mike and Lisa. They are trying to choose a date for a team-building event. Sarah says, "We need to pick a date for the picnic." "How about next Friday afternoon?" Mike says immediately. "That works for me. I have no meetings then." But Lisa looks at her calendar and says, "I am afraid I have a conflict on Friday. I have a doctor's appointment. Could we possibly look at Monday or Tuesday instead?" Here, Lisa uses a very polite phrase to disagree. She says, "I am afraid I have a conflict." "I am afraid" is a gentle way to introduce bad news. It sounds much better than saying, "I cannot do Friday." It shows she is sorry to disappoint the group. Then she immediately offers a solution. "Could we possibly look at Monday or Tuesday?" The word possibly makes the suggestion softer. It is not a demand, it is a request. Sarah replies, "Oh, that is unfortunate about Friday, Lisa, but we need everyone to be there." "Mike, do Monday or Tuesday work for you?" Mike says, "Monday is good for me. Tuesday is a bit busy, but I can make it work." So, Monday seems like the best option. Sarah says, "Excellent. Let's schedule it for Monday then." Notice how Sarah managed the group. She acknowledged the disagreement. "Oh, that is unfortunate." Then she checked with the other person to find a compromise. This is called facilitating a conversation. If you are the leader of a group, using agreement signals is even more important. You want everyone to feel heard. When Sarah said, "We need everyone to be there," she restated the goal of the conversation. This helps everyone focus on solving the problem, rather than arguing about the date. By listening to these many examples, from casual lunches to office meetings, you can start to see the patterns. English speakers love balance. We rarely like to be too direct. We like to wrap our disagreements in a soft layer of agreement or understanding first. It is like a sandwich. The bread is the agreement or validation, and the meat in the middle is the disagreement. "I see your point, but I disagree." Or, "That is a great idea, but I prefer this one." Bread, meat, bread. It makes the medicine go down smoothly. I want to encourage you to not just listen to this script once. The real magic happens when you listen again and again. The first time, you understand the meaning. The second time, you notice the phrases. The third time, you hear the tone and the rhythm. This is how you train your brain to think in English. You do not need to memorize grammar rules. You just need to absorb the patterns through repetition. Let's look at two students, Noah and Olivia, who are studying for an exam. They are arguing about the answer to a question. Noah says, "I am pretty sure the answer is B. The book says that photosynthesis happens in the leaves." Olivia looks at her notes and says, "I see why you would say that, Noah, because plants do have leaves. But I thought the process actually starts in the stem. Or am I confusing it with something else?" Noah checks his book again and says, "Wait, let me read this again. Oh, you are right. It does start in the stem. Thanks for correcting me." Olivia says, "No problem. I was confused about it too at first." Here, Olivia uses a masterful soft disagreement. She says, "I see why you would say that." She validates his logic. Then she says, "But I thought." This is a very soft phrase. She is not stating a fact. She is sharing a thought. She is leaving room for error. She even adds, "Or am I confusing it with something else?" This shows humility. She is not acting like a know-it-all. This makes Noah much more willing to accept her correction. He says, "Wait, let me read this again." He does not get defensive. He checks his facts because she was so polite. If she had said, "No, you are wrong, it is the stem," he might have argued. But because she used a soft approach, they work together to find the right answer. This is the true power of soft language. It turns a potential conflict into a collaboration. It turns an argument into a discussion. And that is what fluency is all about. It is about navigating the social world successfully. You can have perfect grammar, but if you are rude or too direct, people will not want to talk to you. But if you have simple grammar and excellent social skills, people will love talking to you. They will say, "Wow, you speak English so well." And that is what we want for you. As we continue practicing, try to mimic these emotions. When you say, "That is a good idea," try to sound enthusiastic. When you say, "I am not so sure," try to sound thoughtful and gentle. Record yourself if you can. It might feel strange at first, but it is the best way to improve your pronunciation and intonation. Listen to the difference between a flat robot voice and a voice that goes up and down like music. English is a musical language. The melody carries the meaning. We have one more scenario for this section, and this one is about making plans for a holiday. This is a high-stakes conversation because holidays involve money and time, so emotions can run high. Our characters are Jake and Mia. They are a couple planning a summer trip. Jake is looking at his laptop screen. He says, "I found a great deal on a hotel in Rome. It is right in the city center, close to all the monuments. We could walk everywhere." Mia looks over his shoulder and says, "Rome is beautiful, Jake, and the location is perfect. However, I am a little worried about the cost. It is quite expensive, and we still need to pay for flights. Do you think we can afford it this year?" Jake takes a deep breath and says, "I know what you mean. It is pricey. I was just looking at the location and getting excited. But you are right. We have to be sensible. Maybe we should look for something a bit further out of the city center? It might be cheaper." Mia says, "That is a good idea. Or maybe we could go somewhere else entirely." Perhaps a beach destination where we can just relax. We might find cheaper all-inclusive deals there. Jake thinks and says, I am open to that. A beach holiday does sound very relaxing. Let's look at some beach options. This is a perfect example of a negotiation. Jake started with enthusiasm. Mia grounded him in reality with a polite worry. She used, I am a little worried. That is non-accusatory. She asked a question. Do you think we can afford it? She involves him in the solution rather than just shutting him down. Jake accepted her point with, I know what you mean. He admitted his excitement but agreed to be sensible. Then they brainstormed together. I am open to that is a fantastic phrase for agreeing to a new direction. It shows you are flexible and willing to listen. Welcome back to the final chapter of our journey into mastering the art of agreement and soft disagreement here on English in Fluency. I am Alex, and I am incredibly proud of you for sticking with us through this extended lesson. We have covered a lot of ground, from casual lunches to professional meetings, and now, in this final part, we are going to polish your skills to a shine. We are going to look at some more complex situations where the stakes are a bit higher, and we will explore how to use your voice to add layers of meaning to your words. The goal is to make you sound not just correct, but sophisticated and empathetic in your English use. So, let's dive into our first scenario of this final section. We are going to listen in on a conversation between a client and a creative director. This is a business context, but it is also a relationship built on respect. The client, whose name is Robert, is reviewing a design proposal. The creative director, whose name is Vanessa, is presenting her work. Watch how Vanessa handles Robert's feedback without getting defensive, and how Robert expresses his dissatisfaction without being rude. Robert is looking at a brochure design on a tablet screen. He taps the screen and says, Vanessa, I really like the color scheme you have chosen. It feels very modern and fresh. However, I am not entirely sure about the font size for the headings. It feels a little bit small to me. I am worried that older people might struggle to read it. Vanessa nods slowly and replies, I completely understand your concern, Robert. Accessibility is very important to us. I chose the smaller font because I wanted the layout to look clean and elegant, but I see your point about readability. Perhaps we could try a slightly larger size and see if it still looks good? Robert smiles and relaxes his posture. He says, Yes, let's try that. I think if we make it just a tiny bit bigger, it will solve the problem without losing the elegant look. Vanessa says, Absolutely. I will make the adjustments and send you a new version this afternoon. Robert says, Perfect. Thank you for listening, Vanessa. Let's analyze this interaction closely, because it is a masterclass in professional soft disagreement. Vanessa started with, I completely understand your concern. She did not say, but I like it this way. She validated his worry immediately. Then she explained her reasoning briefly. I chose the smaller font because... But she immediately pivoted to his side with, But I see your point. The phrase, I see your point, is perhaps the most useful phrase in the English language for conflict resolution. It bridges the gap between two different opinions. It says, we are on the same team. Then she used a very soft suggestion. Perhaps we could try. The word perhaps is much softer than we should or we must. It invites collaboration. Robert responded with, yes, let's try that. He didn't demand it. He agreed to the experiment. This is how business gets done smoothly. Now, let's move to a social scenario that involves a group of friends trying to make a collective decision. This is often the hardest type of conversation because there are many opinions. We have three friends, Ryan, Sophie, and Ethan. They are trying to decide on a restaurant for a group dinner that night. Ryan is vegetarian, Sophie loves spicy food, and Ethan wants to save money. This is a recipe for disaster if they don't use soft skills. Ryan says, "I found a great Indian restaurant downtown. They have amazing vegetarian options, and Sophie, you would love the spicy curries there." Ethan looks at the menu on his phone and raises his eyebrows. He says, "The food looks incredible, guys, really. I am totally up for Indian food. But looking at the prices, it is a little bit over my budget for tonight. I was hoping for something a bit more casual, like a burger place or a pizza place." Sophie chimes in, "I see where Ethan is coming from. Indian food can be pricey." And Ryan, "I know you want vegetarian options, but most pizza places have great veggie pizzas now." Ryan looks a bit disappointed but stays positive. He says, "That is true. Pizza places do have vegetarian options. I was just excited for the flavors at the Indian place, but I don't want Ethan to stress about money." Ethan says, "Thanks, Ryan. What if we go to that new pizza place on Main Street? I heard they have a vegan menu too, Ryan, so you might find something interesting there." Ryan's face lights up. He says, "Oh, I have heard of that place. I think they actually have vegan cheese." "Yeah, I am happy to give that a try." Sophie says, "Great, it is settled then. Pizza it is." In this conversation, Ethan was the one who had to disagree with the group's initial idea. He did it perfectly. He started with a strong positive comment. "The food looks incredible." This is called cushioning the blow. He made the group feel good before saying no. Then he stated his reason clearly, but gently. "It is a little bit over my budget." He didn't say it is too expensive, which sounds like a judgment on the restaurant. He said it is over my budget, which is a personal fact. Then Sophie used a supportive agreement signal. "I see where Ethan is coming from." This is crucial in group dynamics. It tells Ryan that he is now outnumbered in a friendly way. It signals that the group is shifting direction. Ryan accepted this gracefully, and Ethan offered a compromise that addressed Ryan's specific needs. This is problem-solving at its finest. I want to take a moment to talk about a specific type of soft disagreement that is very common in native English: the partial agreement. Sometimes you agree with 50% of what someone says and disagree with the other 50%. For this, we use phrases like, "That is partly true," or "I agree with you to some extent," or "You have a point there, but." Let's listen to a husband and wife, David and Olivia, discussing their son's education. David says, "I think we should send our son to math camp this summer. It will help him get ahead in school." Olivia replies, "I agree that math is important, and I want him to do well. However, I am worried that he needs a break. He has worked so hard all year. Maybe we should find a camp that is fun, but also educational, like a science camp where they do experiments outdoors." David says, "That is a fair point. He does seem tired lately. A science camp sounds like a good middle ground." Olivia used the phrase, "I agree that." However, this structure is powerful. It tells David, "I am on your side regarding the importance of education, so we don't need to argue about that. We only need to discuss the method." It narrows the focus of the disagreement. It makes the argument smaller and easier to solve. By saying, I am worried that, she introduces her emotion without blaming David. She is sharing a feeling, not giving an order. And her solution, a science camp, is a classic compromise. It keeps the educational value David wants, but adds the fun element she wants. Now let's look at a situation where someone disagrees with an opinion rather than a plan. Opinions are sensitive because they are often tied to our identity. Disagreeing with an opinion requires the softest touch of all. Imagine two friends, Jason and Emily, discussing a book they both read. Jason says, "Honestly, I thought the ending of the book was terrible. It was so predictable. I expected better from the author." Emily, who loved the book, needs to disagree without making Jason feel stupid. She says, "I can see why you felt it was predictable. There were definitely some clues along the way, but I actually found the ending quite comforting. I liked that everything tied up neatly. It made me feel satisfied." Jason replies, "Really? I guess I like endings that are more of a surprise. I wanted to be shocked." Emily says, "I understand that. Shocking endings are exciting too. But for this story, I think the happy ending fit the mood better." Notice how Emily didn't say, "No, you are wrong, the ending was great." She started with, "I can see why you felt that way." She validated his experience. She admitted there were clues, which supports his view. Then she used the word "but" to introduce her own view. Jason's response, "Really? I guess I like endings that are more of a surprise," is a great example of owning your preference. He is not fighting her. He is explaining his own taste. Emily ends with, "I understand that." This validates him again. They leave the conversation respecting each other's different tastes. We have one more very important tool to discuss before we wrap up, and that is the art of the pause. In a fast conversation, your brain might need a few seconds to process a disagreement. You do not have to speak immediately. You can use silence to signal that you are thinking. Let's listen to a scenario between a boss, Mr. Thompson, and his assistant, Sarah. Mr. Thompson says, "Sarah, I want you to organize a big party for the staff next week. I think we need to boost morale." Sarah pauses. She looks a bit surprised. She thinks for a moment and then says, "That is a lovely idea, Mr. Thompson. We definitely need to boost morale. However, I am not sure if we have enough time to organize a big party by next week. It usually takes weeks to plan a big event. Perhaps we could do a smaller event, like a nice lunch with cakes, instead." The pause there, did a lot of work. It signaled to Mr. Thompson that Sarah was hesitant. It prepared him for a soft disagreement. It gave her time to formulate a polite response. If she had spoken immediately, she might have blurted out, "We can't do that." The pause allowed her to access her polite language. Mr. Thompson says, "I didn't realize it took so long." "Okay, a nice lunch sounds good. Let's do that." The pause saved the day. So, never be afraid of silence. It is better to pause and speak politely than to speak quickly and sound rude. Let's go through one final detailed scenario that brings everything together. We have a brother and sister, Mark and Lisa, who are trying to help their elderly parents decide on a new car. This is an emotional topic because it involves their parents' safety. Mark says, "I really think we should convince Mom and Dad to buy that big SUV. It is very safe, and if they have an accident, they will be protected. Plus, it has cameras everywhere to help them park." Lisa looks concerned. She says, "I know safety is the most important thing, Mark, and I agree that the SUV is safe. but I am worried about the size. The car is so high up. I am afraid Mom might struggle to get in and out of it with her bad knees. And Dad finds it hard to turn his neck. So parking a huge car might actually be stressful for him, even with the cameras. Mark listens and nods. He says, I hadn't thought about the height issue. You are right, Mom's knees are bad. But I still worry about a small car not being safe enough. What if we look for a mid-size SUV? Something that sits a bit lower but still has good safety ratings. Lisa's face relaxes. She says, that sounds like a much better idea. A mid-size car would be easier for them to handle. We can look for one with the safety features you want, but with a lower step-in height. Mark says, perfect. Let's go to the dealership this weekend and look at mid-size options. This conversation had all the elements of perfect communication. Lisa validated Mark's main concern, safety, right away. She said, I know safety is the most important thing. She didn't dismiss his fear. Then she introduced her specific worries using, I am worried that, and I am afraid that. These phrases show care. She wasn't attacking his idea. She was caring for their parents. Mark received this well because he knew she respected his input. He used the phrase, I hadn't thought of that. This is a great way to show you are listening and learning. He then proposed a compromise that met both needs, safety and accessibility. By now, you should be feeling much more confident about your ability to navigate these tricky waters. You have the vocabulary, you have the structures, and you have the examples. But I want to leave you with one final thought about attitude. The most important part of soft disagreement is not the words you use, but the feeling behind them. You must genuinely want to understand the other person. If you use all the right phrases, but you are thinking, I hate this idea, I am right, you are wrong, your tone will give you away. You will sound sarcastic or passive-aggressive. But if you approach the conversation with curiosity, thinking, I wonder why they think that, or maybe they know something I don't, your natural softness will come through. English. Fluency is not just about teaching you words. It is about teaching you a new way to interact with the world. When you speak another language, you have the opportunity to be a slightly different person. You can be the person who is always calm, always polite, and always looking for a solution. You can be the person that everyone likes to talk to because you make them feel heard and respected. I want you to take the phrases we learned today and make them your own. Phrases like, I see what you mean, I take your point, that is a fair point, I am not so sure, I was thinking, and perhaps we could write them down in a notebook, put them on flashcards, but most importantly, listen for them. When you watch a TV show, listen for the moments when characters disagree. Is it harsh? Is it soft? What did they say? How did the other person react? If you can predict the reaction, you are mastering the language. Remember, fluency is a journey, not a destination. There will always be new words to learn and new slang to figure out. But the foundation of human communication remains the same: respect, empathy, and clarity. You now have the tools to build that foundation in English. You can agree warmly, disagree gently, and compromise effectively. You can handle a business meeting, a dinner with friends, or a family discussion without stress. I am so happy that you chose to spend this time with me today. I put a lot of heart into this lesson because I know how challenging it can be to move from textbook English to real-world English. I know you want to express your true personality, and sometimes grammar rules get in the way of that. My hope is that this script helps you break through those barriers. I hope you feel free to speak your mind, knowing that you can do it in a way that is polite and natural. Before we say goodbye, I have a small favor to ask. If this lesson helped you, please share it with someone else who is learning English. Maybe a friend, a family member, or a colleague. Help us build a community of fluent speakers who support each other. And if you haven't subscribed to English in Fluency yet, please click that button now. We have so many more lessons planned, and we don't want you to miss out. We are here to guide you every step of the way. Thank you for your attention, your patience, and your effort. You are doing a wonderful job. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep smiling. The world is waiting to hear what you have to say. I am Alex, wishing you the very best in your English journey. See you in the next video. Take care.